Hi everyone, this is daveac and this is my vblog 190 for Friday the 9th of March 2012. Although in actual fact it's Saturday the 10th. Yes, I'm a day late again, I'm afraid. A primitive podcaster who's not out of the woods yet. So terrified he needs a glass of wine. Yes, in under 15 minutes and we'll finish with wine at the end. Well, again, I don't know. I really must get a grip on these vlogs because it doesn't do to do them out of sequence, because I then end up rushing them somewhat, and I don't want to do that. Don't want to waste your time or my time, so I'm going to keep this a little bit short. In fact, with Doctor Who being off our screens, there's probably a little less news for me to mention, although I suppose I could mention an awful lot of tech stuff. Of course, there's been the big C bit in Germany, and of course there's been the big Apple announcement. But more of that in a moment. Let's go with the podcasting news. Unfortunately, there isn't a latest Doctor Who Podshock out, although I do know one's being recorded. Unfortunately, I was unable to make that to help Lewis out this time, but he had good support, and I think the recording is being edited as we now speak. The reason, of course, was that activities on the Cultum Collective were keeping me busy last weekend. Yes, last weekend we did episode 140. That was on the 4th of March, and it was top 100 sci-fi books using a particular list. However, we did have some technical issues. One or two people were finding the audio breaking up. So in actual fact, although we started at book number 100 and we're working our way up, we only got as far as number 71 in this list. So please, this coming Sunday, join the Cultum Collective. This is on Sunday, the 11th of March at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when we will be continuing on with our 100 top books, sci-fi and fantasy books, and maybe you can recommend ones that you feel as though should have been on the list. Just to give you an idea of that, I don't want to read the whole URL out, but it's www.npr.org. But if you put into Google this little phrase, your picks top 100 science fiction fantasy books, I'm sure it will come to the npr.org page, and that's the list that we're primarily using for the podcast. Now, I want to just say that, just run that back a little bit. What I've got a Doctor Who video running on the other computer at the side of me, because if I have it paused, ready to show you, it sputters and stutters and splitters, and is not therefore very good and helpful for yourselves. Okay, let's finish off. See what I mean about being in a tiz, doing it a day late. Okay, let me continue. Well, also, we put up the midweek another one of our commentaries, indeed our last ever commentary on Life on Mars, the UK series Life on Mars, Series 2, Episode 8. And, of course, there were only ever 2 series of it made, 8 episodes in each series. So that has now gone up in the feeds. But even that wasn't straightforward, because I'm not going to blame anybody, but it wasn't my fault this time. There was a slight error on the information that went up with that. I tried to correct that by putting up a short announcement, doing an announcement and then hiding it fairly quickly from the feeds. But just in case you subscribe to the Cultum Collective podcast on iTunes, you may have seen, or should I say heard, a 5-6 minute announcement that I did. You don't need to listen to it. It was basically there to make the feeds update so that the Cultum commentary, Series 2, Episode 8 of Life on Mars showed up correctly on the feeds. I've hidden it now, and come Sunday, that should disappear off the RSS feed altogether. And this coming Sunday, which of course will be the 11th of March, we will continue on with that top 100 sci-fi books. And Ian and Mike and myself will be again considering which series to move on to with our commentaries. Remember, all these commentaries can be found at zarban.com. Okay, well that's really all the podcasting news. I was looking a little bit at the Doctor Who news, but really, because they've started filming, I am trying to keep a little bit away of any news about Doctor Who, because you never know when you're going to be spoiled about Series 7. So I'm going to keep that off the menu, as it were, for a little while. Okay, as I say, there's been a lot of tech going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about tech, and then I'm going to talk about Doctor Who DVD, and then we're going to finish with a wine, and it may well be well under 15 minutes today. Well, the iPad 3, or in actual fact, as it's going to be called, the new iPad, was announced by Apple. Not a great leap forward in many ways. In some ways, a step back. It's slightly thicker, slightly heavier, but it does indeed need that, I suppose, because it has its new retinal display with the quadruple the size screen. In other words, the pixels are 1/4 of the size they were. So it's using the same quality of screen that's used on the iPhone 4. It has a new camera, and a very high resolution camera indeed, that takes very high quality pictures. And one of the big things that seemed to be going on with the announcement about it was not just the actual new iPad itself, but new software on it, in particularly photo editing software. There are lots of places where you can see little reviews. I was just looking at the PC Advisor. That's pcadvisor.co.uk reviews of Apple, the Apple iPad 3, they still call a review. So there's an awful lot to read about it, but in actual fact, some of the comments I've heard are that, if you have an iPad 2, you don't need to rush out and change it for this new version, but obviously those people who have been holding off will be clamouring to get their hands on one. And that's one thing I should also say about the little one in the UK, the little Raspberry Pi computer. I mentioned that before last week. That has gone on sale for £25, but they've had a little bit of a problem. One of the actual components on it was the wrong 1R, had a slightly wrong specification, and it meant that they had to refit those. And that has meant that there's going to be a delay for the second batch of the Raspberry Pi computer to come out. So there is a big waiting list indeed for that. Remember, this is the little computer that's been launched in the UK using Linux, and it's trying to revive young people getting interested in computing and computer languages and so on, rather than just using them for applications. What else? Well, a couple of small tech items. Just noticed that my iTunes has updated to version 10.6. Oh, and another thing with Apple, apparently you can run Windows 7 in a virtual mode on an iPad. Now, I'm assuming that's just on the iPad 2 and presumably this new iPad. So lots of little bits and pieces around on the internet to look. The big CeBIT show in Hanover, Germany, seemed to have quite a lot of things, mainly all the phones. However, the tech guys were saying the trouble is they're all beginning to look rather standardized, because they all seem to need that large frontage touch screen, which of course means their designs look very similar indeed. So no real groundbreaking announcements there, other than the fact that once 4G phones come out and the 4G network gets established, that really will mean a big leap in the performance of these smartphones because of the speed that they can use. Okay, Doctor Who, remember? Let's get back to that. I got this box set, The Mannequin Mania. I talked about Spearhead from Space. The second DVD in it is this, Terror of the Autons, where we meet Jo Grant. And if this clip gets up to speed in a moment, we will just see Jo Grant meeting the third Doctor for the first time. So let's move over there and see if we can join them. So we'll just get that set up, get it focused, bring the sound up. Hoping the volume's okay there.
Not today, thank you.
Doctor,
I said not today, thank you. Oh, no. No.
Sorry, I dealt with it.
Don't do it, you've ruined it.
But your picture was on fire.
3 months delicate work, and now look at your hand-fisted bun vendor.
But this whole place might have gone up in flames.
My dear young lady, steady-state micro-welding always creates more smoke than fire.
Steady-state micro-welding?
Yes. An advanced engineering technique
Just a
pioneered
few
by the
more
lab.
seconds.
Remarkably gifted race, they had 9 opposable digits.
9 what?
9 opposable digits. Yes, well, never mind.
Not a very good start, is it, for her?
Look, I said I don't want any tea today, thank you.
I'm not the tea lady.
And what the place is you doing in here?
I
Don't you know this area is strictly out of bounds to everybody except the tea lady and the brigadier's personal staff?
I'm your new assistant.
Oh, no.
The brigadier sent me along to introduce myself, Doctor. Josephine Grant.
How do you do, Miss Grant? I really don't think you're suitable.
I'm a fully qualified agent, you know. Cryptology, safe breaking, explosives.
Firefighting? Yes, well, I'm sorry, my dear, but what I need is a scientist.
I took general science at A-level.
So I'm sure you did, but even so.
And I'll stop it there, of course. Yes, not a very auspicious start for Josephine Jo Grant. Of course, the previous companion, or helper, should I say, was Liz Shaw, who was indeed a scientist. So I don't know whether she'll shape up to that, but they get on famously as things go on, as probably you know all too well. Well, it's 12.5 minutes, so I don't know how we've got here so fast, but let's have the wine. Now, the wine I've got, I actually opened on Mike Randathor's quiz last night, and it's another wine. I don't think I can pronounce the name, so I'm going to spell it. That's Koine. Koine, is that? It's a Primitivo di Mandura. It's an Italian wine, and it's got the Primitivo grape in it. Go on, focus. There we go. 2010, 14%. And as I say, I did open it and had a little bit out of it. So I do, although I put it out for a while, the bottle has been on 1 day. And we're getting lots of woody smells from this. In actual fact, that was a very strong characteristic when I was tasting it last night. It was almost too oaky for me. But I'm hoping actually that today it's just softened up a little bit with being had the oxygen to it, and I'm going to get more of the fruit come through. Oh yes. Now that is much more integrated. Yesterday when I was drinking it, the oakiness was really overpowering anything else. And although I do prefer more oaky wines than I used to, the balance wasn't right. This has gone certainly mellowed somewhat. Let me have another taste. You know, I think I'm going to really enjoy this. I'm getting much more complicates. I'm getting a little bit of licorice coming through there, a little bit of vanilla, and that is a very much more pleasant drink. So Primitivo, by the way, related to the Zinfandel grape, and I do enjoy Zinfandel. So let's show the bottle again, and that's the wine, and that's my time. I've got to stop it for 15 minutes. Bye all.